Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, before we get started, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. The only thing that you need to do is open up the file that downloads, and then it'll automatically import that color palette into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with today's video. So take a second to go and grab that and then come back and we'll get started. Okay, first things first, we'll go over the canvas dimensions. They are 10 inches by 10 inches at 300 dpi. The color profile that we're using is the second one on the RGB list. And by the end of the video, we've used about 20 layers, so make sure you have that many available by checking here. If you need more layers, you can lower your DPI here to get some more. And this is the color palette that you should have downloaded from the description. So these are the colors that we will be using in today's drawing. So first things first, we are going to leave our background white, but we are going to draw our little circle background with this color, the second one on the top row. So grab that. We're going to be on layer 1, and let's just grab the monoline brush from the calligraphy tab. Go ahead and set that to 100%, and we are just going to draw a perfect circle in the middle of the screen. So first things first, draw a circular shape, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfect circle, maybe about that big, leaving a little bit of room all the way around. Go ahead and drag your color to fill it in, and then click on the arrow tool. Turn on snapping at the bottom left and just go ahead and snap it to the middle of the screen when you see the two yellow lines. However, we are also going to move it down just a little bit. So we just want to make sure that we see the yellow vertical line, which means it's centered left to right, but we want a little bit more room at the top than on the bottom. And now on this same layer, we are going to switch to our eraser. And we are going to switch our eraser to the grunge brush. So click on the eraser icon again to bring up your list of brushes. And we're going to go under the textures category in the grunge texture brush. Our size is at about 25 to 30%. And what we're going to do is just go around the edges and erase some of our circle. Keeping in our good circular motion, we don't want to distort the shape too much. But make sure that like when you have an area like this where you did do the erasing but you can still really see this sharp line of the circle, just make sure to go over it well enough that you can't really see the original line. So let's do this all the way around. Kind of adding just a little bit of extra in some spots real lightly just to really give it some good texture. Okay, so now we're going to add a little bit of texture to our background here. So let's add a new layer. Click on this layer, turn it to a clipping mask, and we are going to grab our third color on the top row of our color palette. And we are going to switch our brush. We are going to use the stucco brush under the painting category. We have that set to about 30%. And we are just going to add a little bit of this to our background here. Just kind of in little splotches. Okay. Next, we are going to add our hills that our lighthouse is going to sit on. So they are also going to be clipping masks that are clipped to this shape that we originally created. So let's add a new layer, click on it, turn it into a clipping mask. We are going to grab our first color on the second row. We're going to switch back to our monoline brush, which is under the calligraphy tab. Again, I just have it at 100%. And we're just going to start on the left side here, starting about here, and we're just going to make a small hill shape with not a ton of movement to it, kind of like this. And we're just going to blindly connect one side to the other side so that we can fill in our shape here. And then while we are on this layer, we're going to click on it, turn on alpha lock, and we're going to go ahead and add our textures to it right now. So we're going to switch back to our stucco brush under the painting category, still at about 30%. And we're going to switch our color to the second one on the second row. This is going to be mostly a highlight color, so we're going to fill about the top half of our hill with this color pretty lightly. Then we're going to grab the third color on the second row. This is going to be our main highlight color, and we're just going to focus that mostly on the very top, kind of going lightly into our other color as well to kind of blend them together. And then we're going to do our darker colors. So the fourth color on the second row, lightly on the bottom section here, hitting right into our other colors to make sure the texture covers the whole shape. And then lastly, the fifth color on the second row, just at the very, very bottom of our shape here. Okay. And then we're basically just going to do that again on another hill, which will actually be behind this one. So this is our front hill. So let's add a new layer, drag it below this layer. It should automatically turn into a clipping mask. If it doesn't, go ahead and click on it and turn on clipping mask. We are going to go back to our first color on the second row and go back to our monoline brush. And then starting about a little bit in on this side of the hill, we're going to make a smaller hill that goes just inside on this side of our little circle shape, so it doesn't go to the edges like our first one did. Just kind of something like that. It ends up mostly flat, which is where our lighthouse is going to sit, with a little flat area in the middle. And then again, I'm just going to blindly connect these behind our other shape so that we can fill it in. And then we're going to do the same exact thing for texture. So let's go to our layer menu on this layer, turn on alpha lock, and then go ahead and grab our second color on the second row and switch back to the painting category, our stucco brush. And again, focus this mostly towards the top half or so of our shape. Grab the third color to focus right on the very tippy top. The fourth color. And our fifth color here, right at the very bottom. Okay, so this is how your canvas should look now. Go ahead and make any adjustments that you need to. You can move your shapes around a little bit if you want. I might move mine to the center a little bit more, because they were kind of off to the left or off to the right side here. So I just grabbed them both and moved them to the center, and my shape kind of went off the side here, so it doesn't look too weird, but if it does, you could like stretch your shapes to make them fit a little bit better. You can do this by going to the layer menu, select one of your two hill layers, and then slide right on the other one to select them both, and then go ahead and click the arrow tool and you can move them around or resize them. Next, we're going to go ahead and start on the lighthouse. So let's go ahead and go to our layer menu, add a new layer on top of all of our layers, and this is going to be the start of our lighthouse shape. So let's go ahead and grab the first color on the third row. We're going to switch back to our monoline brush, and we are going to turn on Symmetry to draw our original shape. So let's go to the gear icon up in the top left corner, turn on the drawing guide, click Edit Drawing Guide, Switch to symmetry and make sure vertical symmetry is turned on, so you should have a vertical line. If not, you can go under options to select vertical. Make sure you can see your line okay, and then click done. And we're just going to go ahead and start drawing the main shape of our lighthouse. So it's going to be almost a rectangle, but then the sides will flare out just a little bit, so it's a little skinnier on the top, a little bit wider on the bottom. So let's go ahead and just start a little bit off of center, just a little bit over, and we're just going to draw a line going down and to the right just a little bit. Hold your pen down at the end so that it turns into a perfectly straight line, and then we can adjust it a little bit. So we don't want it flared out quite this much, just flared out just a little bit, about like that. And it's okay if to go over your hill, we are going to erase this part at the bottom. But I am going to click edit shape and just drag it up just a little bit and out just a little bit, so it's a little wider and a little closer to the top of our circle. It should have about this much room left there. Go ahead and grab our pen tool again, and we're just going to draw a straight line across the top. Hold it down and touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfectly horizontal line that meets in the middle. Do the same thing on the bottom. Again, touching your finger down to the screen. And then we can fill that in to be the main part of our lighthouse. Okay, and now we are going to get rid of this bottom part of the lighthouse so that we see more of the hill in front. We can't put the lighthouse shape behind the hills because it'll clip to the background, and we need to actually put our own clipping masks on top of this one. So we need this to be its own layer that we can apply clipping masks to. So in order to get rid of this bottom section of the lighthouse, we are going to go to our layer menu, find our top hill here, so that should be the bottom hill, should be our top hill here, the smaller one. Go ahead and click our selection tool, set it to automatic, and then go ahead and just tap on this hill. And it should highlight the whole hill. If it doesn't, if it's trying to section out some of these other colors that you have, you can go ahead and slide right on your threshold or down on your threshold if you need to, but it doesn't undo your selection, so you have to undo your selection and then redo it. But if you need to increase your threshold, go ahead and do so, and then make sure you get your selection made here. And so it should have this whole shape highlighted. With that shape highlighted, we go back to our layer menu, we click on our blue layer, turn off drawing assist while you're here. So click on this layer, turn off drawing assist, grab our eraser tool, and let's actually change it to just the monoline brush is what I usually have it on. And then let's go ahead and erase this section just by running our eraser all along the bottom little edge here. So it only erases the part that is selected, which is the shape of our hill. So that is a really cool feature to use in certain situations. So let's go ahead and just click on our arrow tool to kind of get rid of our selection. And now we have our nice lighthouse shape here. So let's go ahead and start adding stuff to it. So the first thing that we will do is add the stripes. So let's go ahead and make a new layer on top of this layer. Click on it, turn it into a clipping mask. Grab our second color on the third row. Now let's just go ahead and use our selection tool, change it to rectangle and turn on color fill. And then let's just go ahead and make a rectangle, you know, about this big and about this thick. Just like that. Then we're going to use the arrow tool, click on it until it's selected, and then we're just going to use this little green bar to twist it. And since it's a clipping mask, you know, you'll see it cuts off right at the edge here, and then it overlaps on this edge, so that's why we made it pretty long, so that we can use it as our diagonal lines. So I have one set there. I like the positioning of it, I like the thickness of it. Go ahead and adjust yours if you need to. You can turn on freeform, and then you can make it thinner or longer if you need to, and then use the rotation until you like the rotation of it. Then we'll go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer, click the arrow tool and I'll drag this one down to maybe this corner, just showing just a little bit there. Make another duplicate, arrow tool again, and these should all be set to clipping masks automatically. If they're not, go ahead and set them to clipping masks so that they clip to our blue shape. But then we'll go ahead and do this one up a little further, kind of trying to space them out evenly with the others. And then we'll do one more in this top right corner here, just again showing just a teeny bit there. Okay, so now we have all of that done. So now we're going to add some texture to this shape. So the first thing that we're going to do is add the brick-like texture. So what we're going to do is add another new layer above all of our stripes. Click on it, turn it into a clipping mask as well. Go back to our blue color, the first one on the last row, and we're going to switch our brush to the dry ink brush under the inking category. Set that to maybe 10%, and we are going to use another tool. So we're going to switch off of Symmetry for now, and we are going to switch to another tool. So grab the gear icon, drawing guide should be on, and then click edit drawing guide, go to 2D grid, and then turn on assisted drawing, and then click done. So the grid will give you a nice grid line if you need it. Turning assisted drawing on helps you draw perfectly horizontal and vertical lines, no matter where you start with your pen. So we are going to go ahead and use this to draw some little brick areas. So I'm just going to start in the white here because it's the same blue color. So we're not going to do it on the blue, but we can have it kind of like extending off the blue a little bit in some areas. So I'm just going to start by drawing some little horizontal lines here and there. They don't have to be perfectly sized or spaced, but then I'm just going to draw some little vertical lines as well. So the horizontal lines will be a little closer together than the vertical lines. And then this just kind of gives you a nice little brick pattern. So I'm just going to do this in a few little sections. Again, some of them touching the blue, some of them not. And just kind of randomly sized and placed. And they don't have to be perfect because, you know, from far away you won't really be able to tell of any imperfections, and they are kind of supposed to be imperfect anyway, and kind of nicely textured. So maybe just something a little bit like that. Okay, next we're going to add some more texture to our lighthouse. So let's go ahead and add another new layer. Again, click on this layer, turn it into a clipping mask. And we are actually going to change the layer style of this one. So they're all always set to normal, which is what this N stands for. But click on the N, and then we are going to actually switch this one up to multiply. So multiply is a really good layer style that I like to use for shadows. So we are going to go ahead and click on our color palette, select this third color on the last row, And we are going to go back to our stucco brush under the painting category. And let's drop the size down to maybe 20%. We're just going to run our brush down this left side of our lighthouse. But using multiply in a nice gray color gives you a good shadow, and it creates a shadow on each color. So our blue has a shadow and our white has a shadow. If we just used a gray color on a normal layer style, you know, it would maybe look like a shadow on the white color, but it wouldn't. It would just be a light gray color on our blue, and it wouldn't look like a shadow there. So this helps us get a nice shadow. Next, let's add another new layer. This time, click on it and turn it into a clipping mask. This time we are going to do a similar thing. We're going to change the layer style, but this time we're going to do overlay. And this is the kind of layer style that I like to use for highlights. So grab the fourth color on the last row, same brush, same size, and we're going to go across the other side of our lighthouse. Very lightly for the most part, covering until we get to our shadow, but again, very lightly right here because we just want to add mostly a little texture. And then let's make it a little bit brighter right on the right side to add a nice highlight there. But again, similarly, it adds a highlight to the white and a highlight to the blue, even though they're different colors. Next, we're going to add the top part of our lighthouse. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. We do not turn it into a clipping mask this time. Let's grab our fifth color on the last row, grab our selection tool, again turn it to rectangle and color fill turned on, and we know our lighthouse is in the very middle of the screen because we used the symmetry tool to make it. So let's go ahead and make a little platform rectangle shape at the top of our lighthouse, about this size, going off of each end just a little bit and not super thick. But then we can go ahead and click our arrow tool, and with snapping turned on the bottom left, we can wait till we find our yellow vertical line, and that lets us know it's exactly in the middle, which means it's exactly lined up with our lighthouse since we know that that is also in the middle. Then let's go ahead and add a new layer, do the same thing, same color, selection tool, rectangle, and color fill, and we're just going to make a smaller rectangle, so about the same width as our original lighthouse. So let's just start on the left side and make it about the same size as the top of our lighthouse here that we can see, kind of line it up with that, about the same thickness as our rectangle below it. And then again, arrow tool, snapping turned on. Let's go ahead and line it up in the middle of our screen, like that. And then we are going to go to our layer menu and we are going to snap these two layers together. So our two rectangles, now that we have them centered, we're going to snap them together so that they're all one layer, which we are going to work on. So let's go ahead and firstly add some texture to our rectangle. So go ahead and click on it, turn on alpha lock, and then we're going to grab the sixth color on the last row, and we're going to be on our stucco brush again, and this is kind of a lighter color, so we are going to focus this mostly on the right side where we made our highlights on our lighthouse as well. And then grab the seventh color on the last row and use that on the left side, and that adds a nice little shadow and texture over there. So the reason we didn't do the multiply and overlay layers again like we did to our lighthouse is because this is all one color, so I can just use a darker gray and a lighter gray to get our texture and highlights and shadows, whereas before we had the separate colors that we needed the highlights and shadows to cover, so that we didn't do them in separate layers. So that's just two different ways to do your shadows and highlights. Okay, now we're going to add some brick texture to our little upper area here. So let's be on that layer, grab the eighth color in the last row, second to last color, and we're going to go back to our dry ink brush under the inking category, same size as before, about 10%. And we are going to go to our layer and click on this layer, turn on Drawing Assist so that we can use our 2D grid feature again. So just like we did before, we're just going to make some small areas of brick. Some of them can even go off the side of the shape because we have alpha lock turned on. Something kind of like that. And we are done with that little part. So next we are going to make another little section behind our lighthouse here. It'll be a blue kind of square shape that we're going to do, you know, the texture to as well. So let's add a new layer, and we are actually going to drag it behind this layer that we just drew, but we don't want it to be a clipping mask. So if it automatically turned into one, click on your layer and turn that off. Well, let's go ahead and grab our blue color again in the first one on the last row, and then we are going to grab our selection tool again with rectangle and color fill turned on. Just a little inside here on this shape, we're going to start drawing up and over till we get about the same there, and then up a little bit so it's almost square shaped. Click the arrow tool to select the shape, and again find the yellow vertical line to line it up with. And we are going to click on this layer on the layer menu, turn on alpha lock, and we are going to do what we like to do here. So we are actually only going to use a highlight this time. So we are going to use the second color on the last row, and we are going to switch back to our stucco brush under the painting category, and we are just going to very, very lightly use this kind of all over the shape, very, very lightly, and then kind of focus more of it on the right edge here so that that part has a little bit more to kind of look like a little highlight there. Okay, so we are almost done with our lighthouse shape. However, I got way too close to the top of my picture here. I need a little bit more room to create the little pointy top, and we are just going to select every single layer on our entire drawing, including all the background stuff, so that we don't lose any of our proportions. So just select them all by sliding right on all of them, and then click the arrow tool, and we are going to downsize the drawing just a little bit with uniform turned on. Downsize it just a little bit, and then re-center it the best that you can. It might not be perfect because we're working with so many layers here. It's hard to find the center, but get it pretty close. Okay, and now we will move on. We will go ahead and make the tippy top of our lighthouse. So let's go ahead and go back to our layers menu, add a new layer on top of all of our layers. Grab the 5th color on the last row, and again we are going to use the selection tool, rectangle and color fill turned on, and starting on the outside of our square here just a little bit and covering it right on the top, we are going to make a little rectangle that goes about the same size off of this side of the shape as well. Click the arrow tool on this layer and just make sure it's centered on the yellow line. And then from there, we are going to grab our monoline brush again under the calligraphy tab, and then we are going to switch back to symmetry for a second. So let's go back to our gear icon. Drawing guide should be turned on. Click edit, drawing guide, click symmetry, vertical symmetry, click done. We're going to lower the size of our brush to maybe 30%, and then we are going to start in the middle, up a little ways, but not quite to the top of our canvas, and just start in the middle and draw a line out. and then hold it down so it turns into a perfectly straight line, and then just connect it right to the edge of the top of our little rectangle that we drew before. And then let it go, and it should look like this. And then go ahead and fill in that spot on your shape. And we're going to do the same thing with our textures. So click on this layer, click on it, turn off drawing assist, click on it again and turn on alpha lock. And again, grab our next color on this row, so the 6th color, the lighter gray than we were using before, and grab the stucco brush again. Focus that on the right side of our shape here. Especially on the very edge, and then go ahead and grab the next color, the darker one, the 7th one on the last row, and focus that on the other side until we have some nice texture there. And then lastly, we're going to add some lines to our tippy top here. Grab the 8th color on the last row, switch back to our dry ink brush, and switch back to our 2D grid. So click on the gear icon, edit drawing guide, 2D grid, assisted drawing turned on, done. Click on our layer menu again and make sure this layer now says assisted. If it doesn't, click on it and turn on drawing assist. And then the first line that we're going to draw is just right at the top of our rectangle here where it kind of meets the triangle. We're just going to draw a line straight across. And then we're just going to kind of draw some little stripes across the rest of the top, trying to keep them pretty evenly spaced. And next for our lighthouse, we're going to draw the little railing up top here. So let's go ahead and add a new layer, drag it below our ledge layer above our blue squarish layer here. And then we are going to also click on this layer and turn on drawing assist, same color, same brush from our lines before, and we are just going to draw a railing. So draw a line outside of the blue square inside of our ledge here. Draw a line straight up to about halfway through our blue, straight over till we get about the same distance from the edge here, and then straight down. And then in between, we're just going to make some small vertical lines, again spacing them out as evenly as you can all the way across, like so. Next, we are going to add the windows to our lighthouse, and that will be the last thing that we do here. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. It doesn't really matter where it's at as long as it's above all of our original lighthouse body kind of layers. So I just ended up with mine on top of my railing. That's totally fine. Let's use this same color that we're on here, this 8th color on the last row. Grab our selection tool, rectangle and color fill turned on, and go ahead and draw a small vertical rectangle, like so. Let it go. Click the arrow tool. Go ahead and center it with our lighthouse if you can get the yellow line, or just make sure it looks pretty close to the middle. And then we are going to click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, grab our last color on the last row, 9th one in line. We're going to grab our stucco brush again, and we are just going to kind of run this all over just to add a little bit of texture and depth to our window. When that's done, go ahead and click on your layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer by sliding left and clicking duplicate. Click the arrow tool, turn on magnetics in the bottom left, and then we're just going to drag it straight down, and the magnetics kind of help it stay in line. So drag it down about this far from the bottom so that they look pretty evenly spaced out from top to bottom. Okay, and that is it for our lighthouse. So the last thing that we need to do is just add the sun and the clouds. So to do that, let's go ahead and start with the sun. Let's just go to the top of our layers, add a new layer, go to our color palette, select the 4th color on the top row, Switch back to our monoline brush. Draw a circular shape up in the top right corner here. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen. I do want the circle to kind of overlap with my original circle, so let's do that, and then let's go ahead and fill that in. And then do the same thing that we did earlier with the edges. So we are going to grab the eraser tool, turn the eraser, switch it to the grunge brush for our eraser at about 30%. And we are just going to lightly go all the way around the edge. Again, making sure that we can't really see that harsh line anymore as we go. And then lastly, we'll add our clouds. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. Grab our first color on the first row, our white. Grab the monoline brush again. Let's set the size to about 20%. And we are just going to, first of all, draw the flat lines for our clouds. And on the layers menu, click on this layer, turn on assisted drawing. And then we are going to use our 2D grid for the last time here. So the base of our clouds are just going to be a horizontal line, so I'll make one here. Then maybe one more down here a little longer. And maybe one over here. And then we can go to our layer menu, turn off drawing assist. And let's go ahead and just turn off our 2D grid. So go to the gear icon, turn off drawing guide. Back to our brush, and we are just going to make some little cloud shapes from end to end to complete these that we started and fill them in. And the last one there. So that is it, and that completes our drawing today. So if you had fun, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more tutorials from me in the future. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, please do so and tag me so that I can check it out. While you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching!